My name is Will Munson. I'm the events chair for the AMA New Orleans board this year. Thank you again for joining us. We're super excited for today's Spring Clean Your Marketing Plan. I was able to get a wonderful panel of some past AMA New Orleans presidents with us to kind of share some of their insights. We got individuals from all aspects of kind of like the marketing world, like looking from in-house marketing, from agency, and then also from like taking that philanthropy and kind of community kind of mindset going into it. What we're going to do is go ahead and let each of them kind of present their individual pieces, and then at the end we're going to open it up for like Q&A and just kind of have a nice little conversation more about like ways that take a look at your individual marketing plans for your clients, for your industry, or just when those friends and families come kind of bug you for some ideas and be able to kind of present with that. Real quick, just to kind of give some AMA plugs real quick. If you're not already an AMA member and interested in joining us and seeing even more wonderful events like that we have right now, and in getting that nice membership discount. Membership prices, I've never been lower right now, and feel free to kind of check us out. We were lucked out that one of the panelists today is the membership director, so she'll be here to ask any questions if you have specifically about that, but also check out our website at amaneworleans.com or ama.org/join. Thank you, Michael. To kind of take a look at membership. Other than that, we have a bunch of events coming up too for the chapter. Tonight at 6, we're having an open house, our first one. We're going to be checking out the online optimism. And if you go to our website, amaneworleans.com/events, they'll have more information about that. It's an absolutely free event, highly recommended. Recommend anybody who's interested in just kind of talking to somebody else within the community, or even if you know students that are potentially interested in seeing like an agency firsthand. Also, we got coming up on the 13th, we have our monthly marketing meetup. If you haven't joined any of those, it's just a low stakes conversation between marketers. We just kind of have a free form conversation with various different topics. And that way we can just literally talk about those nerdy things that you want to talk to about people, but anybody not in marketing has no idea what you're talking about. It's the time to shine then. And then lastly, on the 27th at the end of this month, we have another webinar coming up at noon. It's the self-publishing for business growth as well. So feel free to check out our upcoming events. And then if anything strikes your fancy, please come join us. But that being said, let's kick on. I don't know if we just lost Malcolm.
It looks like we may have.
We might have lost Malcolm. So,
Oh, here he is.
Speak of the devil. So today I'd like to proudly introduce my 3 panelists today. Coming up first, we're going to have Malcolm Schwartzenbach. And I apologize if I get anybody's name wrong. I'm from Chalmette, so words don't come out of my mouth as clearly as others. But Malcolm is coming to us. He's a brand strategist over at Trumpet Group. We also have coming right behind him is Tristan Babin, who's the field communications advisor with Phillips 66. And then lastly, we got Christine Briede. Okay, thank God. The executive director for the Jefferson Community Foundation, and also our current AMA membership chair. So that being said, I'm going to kick it off to you, Malcolm, if you want to go ahead and take the floor. Thank you.
Sure thing. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, right when you said, let's get started, my power went out. So had to wait for the modem to reboot. So good, I'm here. I know. So, you talk about spring cleaning your marketing plan. I thought about it for a while and ultimately came to the conclusion that you should constantly be spring cleaning your marketing plan. So I've been in the business a while. I've been on the agency side a lot longer, but I have been a client twice. So I get the client side as well, but most of my experience is on the agency side. And obviously I've worked with a lot of different companies. So I'm just gonna kind of hit on some points that I think modern marketers should keep in mind as they're thinking about, their plans for the year. You know, back in the day, you used to do an annual marketing plan and you kind of stuck with it. And I think that's completely changed now. I've seen it change, and the what I tell people is you should almost never have an annual plan. You should have a plan that changes regularly. And so I understand, especially those on the client side, that you have to do a budget. So you have to have an annual budget. But the reality today is that things are happening and changing so much that the set it and forget it to a plan is a thing of the past. Marketers these days, have to be adaptive. I'm one of those people that says nothing's going to go according to plan anyway. So at least have your objectives down, what you're trying to do, and be prepared to change those as things change. And, if anything, the pandemic showed us that, right? So, every one of my clients, as soon as that started, I started working with to determine how we were going to pivot. Because, if you're a tourism client at that time, which we have a couple of those, they lost their entire budget. Their budget went away. Yet you don't want people to forget your brand just because they're working out of their house. Other clients of mine, namely a credit union, they had to actually step up because people were scared for their money. They didn't know what the future held, and people were looking for that kind of calm, cool, collected voice in the marketplace. And so the credit union, we decided, rather than kind of pushing credit cards and products, we really needed to go back and lean on our brand and start to talk about how we were willing to help people. And so point one is just remain nimble and awake. To that end, and this I've always been controversial in this point, but I'm not a huge fan of research, especially I think focus groups, things like that, are good for input. But I tell people, don't do research, do reconnaissance, which in my mind means you're constantly listening. And I don't just mean social listening. I mean, getting out there and talking to people. I call myself a street marketer. In my mind, there are two types of marketers: book marketers and street marketers. I'm a street marketer, which means I'm often marketing to people who I have nothing in common, but I've got to go out there and talk to them. And if you go out and talk to 10 to 15 people, you will start to see patterns that make real sense. Rather than, 22% of people want, crunchier cereal. Let's get out there and kind of understand the people that we're talking to and what they're going through in their lives. And, we're in New Orleans, take them out for a beer. No way better to kind of disarm them and let them know that you're just there to hear their opinion. So, reconnaissance, not research. And, again, remember, we're talking to people. And this is where I disagree with a lot of book marketers. It's a lot of people want to reduce people to numbers because it makes it easier to get your head around. But we got to remember, people are inherently illogical. They are not logical beings. Nobody buys a BMW for disc brakes. They buy it for a whole host of emotional reasons. Heck, the biggest purchase you're going to probably make in your life is your house. And that is a completely emotional, very illogical choice when you really sit down and think about it. Now, what I caution people is don't challenge people on it, because we're in a society where you're supposed to be logical. So if you ask me why I bought a BMW, I would likely tell you it gets great gas mileage and man, the safety ratings are awesome. But the reality is I like the way a BMW feels. You know, I like to feel the road. And it's completely emotional. So just remember that. And to that end, a lot of marketers want to sit behind the desk. And I personally think that's completely wrong. You need to be out. You need to get from behind the desk. You need to understand, again, the softer side of marketing, because it is, in my opinion, more art than science. Sure, there's some science that you can use, to help guide you, to help monitor how it's going, but really it's more of an art. And the challenge there is, I know, especially on the client side, many of you are in organizations that, are looking for certainty for marketing. They're looking for, things they can rely on. But somebody who really understands marketing, hopefully you're working for a company that does and understands that to really, we can have an annual budget, but I'm going to remain flexible throughout the year because I never know what's going to happen. The final point I'll make, and this is something that I learned many years ago, marketing is inherently research and development. There's a huge research and development portion of marketing. No matter how smart we are, no matter how good our ideas are, nobody can ever guarantee that anything's going to work. Again, because you're dealing with people who are going to constantly not do what you think they're going to do. And so I encourage everybody, and you might have to convince your bosses of this at first, but save a portion of your marketing plan for some R&D and be okay with that. And just say, hey, we're going to try this and just see if it works. We don't know if it's going to work, but hopefully we'll learn something from it. And so in that way, the greatest marketers I know weren't born that way. They learned over time, and they experimented. And nothing wrong with an experiment as long as you learn something. And so again, my advice to everybody was just set aside a small portion to go out there and try something. So I think I'll dismount there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. It was great to kind of hear from. And let's kind of move it along to up next, we have Tristan, if you don't mind taking the floor.
Sure. Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Everybody? Yeah. Awesome. So I'll speak to the position I was in just before this one, because I just moved in this job in March, and it's on a global scale. So I'm not really the professional yet on everything I'm supposed to be doing. I'm still learning. But as far as my position supporting communications and public affairs at our Alliance refinery in Belchase, I can tell you usually at this time of year, typically January, February, I would be looking at what are the things that I really want to market the refinery as for the year. So I was a comms person, so I always look at it from that standpoint as far as engagement and stuff. And it's a little bit different for us because we're not necessarily selling a product at the refinery. I'm not marketing like a gas station. I'm just marketing the refinery itself as a piece of the community. But it's the same idea, like Malcolm said, really understanding who I was communicating with at the refinery. It really wasn't, or at least I thought the beauty of marketing in the refinery was a little bit less global than you would think for a big company. For me, I was looking at what local officials do I want to attract their attention on social media? What community groups should I really be involved with? The boards that I sat on, like who are these key people in the community that I want to know about us and that I want to have a knowledge about what refining does. There's that educational component, and then also ultimately be advocates for what we do. A lot of that, any type of philanthropy, we had a philanthropy budget every year that I worked with. All that was very strategic, supporting the company's aims, and then also the things that I thought really mattered in the community, and that they really cared about. It's like no good deed goes undone, right? And I just think at this point in the year, usually in January, February, March, I was really looking back at the year before, thinking, what were the opportunities I missed with philanthropy or with communicating? Sometimes in the world that we live in refining, it's very conservative. And so sometimes you do these great things and then we don't talk about it. And then like there's a PR opportunity missed there because people didn't know that we sponsored this thing or that we started this initiative. And so I was always looking back at what could have been done better. And then, like Malcolm said, being prepared to just shift everything on a whim is like a big part of what we do. Last year, Ida rolled through and really hurt Plaquemines Parish. I mean, just like everybody else in Southeast Louisiana. And so at that point in the year, if you think about it, that was the end of August, beginning of September, I've typically planned out all of my philanthropy for the rest of the year at that point. Pretty much all my money is going to be accounted for. And so for me, I always keep a little bit ready to pivot in case there's something big that happens. I mean, hurricane season is an annual thing. So immediately I was pivoting to organizations I've worked with for years and really trying to use that money for our fence line community, for the people that were near us, that care about us and were in need. And so I was really glad. I mean, I didn't have a lot of money, but it was, something significant. And it was just so wonderful to be able to say, like in September, hey, we're sponsoring these FEMA clinics through SBP. We're sending 25 something thousand to the coast to restore the coast after this, like really looking for things that not everybody else was donating to. Everyone goes for United Way, Red Cross, of course we did those as well, but really looking for things that are more long-term and strategic that fall also within our own focus areas. And it's easier said than done because in the height of it, everyone's like, okay, you just go to the same ones. But there's other ones there that are going to solve a more strategic issue like the coastline and providing storm surge protection. So at this point in the year, that's what I was doing, identifying organizations that, okay, later on, I want to work on a project with them if something like that happens. And then from the comm standpoint, like I said, really identifying where on the internet or in person are the people that I want to reach. I don't necessarily care at the refinery level about investors because I'm not really in the corporate position to deal with them. And I care about very singular, the people next door to us, the people, down the road from us, the elected officials that I deal with, the sheriff, people like that, the fire departments. I care about what they think because that's the people I interact with and I'm going to need. But in the corporate job that I'm in now, it's very different. It's completely different. It's very much investor based, and we're looking at what investors want to see from us, and also the community too. But it's a little bit less grassroots, way more involved in some of those strategic initiatives and sustainability, any of the ESG goals. All of those things matter a lot more to investors. And then the brand as a whole. Who is Phillips 66? And one of our big things is we want to position ourselves as leaders in the energy industry and a part of the energy transition. So a lot of the things you see the company participate in, whether it's our CEO or just different refineries, especially on the West Coast, you'll see them participating in these panels, talking about what the company's doing, what are we doing in terms of renewable energy. And so all those things at the corporate level are very thought out. I'm just becoming a piece of it, so I can't give you all the inside scoop, but I can tell you it's very strategic. And even, one thing that I think we probably do a little different than most people is because we're such a big company, a lot of marketing communications are targeted internally because we have people in the company that don't work in the same business unit, right? I came out of refining, but I don't necessarily know a lot about midstream or chemicals or all of those pieces of the company. So we're constantly internally communicating on the things that the company as a whole is doing and that each business unit's doing. And so right now I can tell you we're looking at our editorial calendar for the year internally and externally because a lot of it overlaps, but we're really looking at what are the big things this year. Phillips 66 itself is turning 10 years old in May. So that's a big thing that we're going to be communicating about and what has happened over the last 10 years, what advances have we made. And then, looking at the individual refineries, some of those are very, very old. We have one turning 75 in April. And so kind of planning out communications around that and connecting them back to being the energy leader that we are and our modern goals, So I'll say from the local standpoint, it is very different. It's very grassroots. But it's internal and external as well. I'm constantly communicating the things that we're doing externally and then, internally to employees because we want our employees to be engaged because they're usually a big part of the community. And then, of course, at the corporate level, very much centric on these bigger picture things and what investors are looking to hear from us. And they give us a lot of feedback, what they want to hear from us, what they want to know more about, and then kind of moving from there. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight as to how we do marketing. We just don't have a official marketing plan, at least not at the refinery, but it's there. We have a comms plan, and I can tell you every year the people in my jobs at the different refineries are constantly thinking about the objectives they want to hit for the year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tristan. And let's rounding up our headliner, Christine.
Good afternoon, everybody. Very excited to be here. I know a lot of the participants because I serve on the AMA board. I know that this chapter has been good to me and very instrumental in helping me. Just to give you a little bit of a background. So for about 21 years, I owned a restaurant supply company in Mid-City. I sold the company about 9 years ago, took some time off to spend with my daughters who were in high school at that time. They are now almost 27 and 22. So mom wanted to go back to work so she didn't have to stay home all day. So I am now, and I'm seeing flashes. I may lose power, hopefully not. I think the weather's getting bad out there. But just to let you know, about 2 years ago, specifically on March 16th of 2020, we all know what happened in March of 2020. I was named as executive director for the Jefferson Community Foundation. And the biggest challenge for me with this new position is that people did not know that Jefferson Parish had a community foundation. Who knew? So as the very first executive director, my task, first of all, is to let people know we're here. We are a supporting organization of the Greater New Orleans Foundation, and a lot of people are familiar with GNOF. But our focus is only in Jefferson Parish. So it was kind of a big undertaking to really, I think my printer's making words out. Sorry about that. I think with the electrical flash, it was starting to go crazy. So, just brand recognition, we didn't have any. Nobody knew who we were. The foundation was created after Katrina to really address the needs specifically in Jefferson Parish for the community. We have 6 focus areas for education, for community redevelopment, neighborhood revitalization. Race equity is a big part of what we do throughout all of our focus areas. We focus on our senior citizens. We focus on reliable transit, and we're working on some initiatives for that. But basically, I had to start from scratch with this foundation and really marketing and coming up with who are our customers, because basically that's what marketing is. You're creating customers. Who are they? And a lot of our board members thought, well, it's anybody who works or lives in Jefferson Parish. And that's true, but it's not the whole picture. So in developing a marketing plan for the organization, I really had to collaborate with a lot of organizations. And Tristan kind of mentioned, a Phillips 66 might have been a partner for us if there was any interest. Maybe they had employees that live in Jefferson Parish that I may be using some grant money to help them after a storm, because we do a lot of disaster recovery, which was another part of what a community foundation does. So I have a plan in place that I had to develop, I had to put together, I had to get buy-in from the board of directors. But at the same time, like Malcolm mentioned, you have a plan, but you don't always stick to it because life happens. So I started this position, we had COVID. So there was no getting out into the public to talk about what we do. And would you support this foundation and the work that we do in the community? That didn't happen. So everything happened as we are today on Zoom. Then we also wanted to make sure that we're getting the impact stories to our donors and letting them know this is where your dollars mean the most. And this is why you should continue to support the Jefferson Community Foundation. Now, it sounds easy. You can put a story together. I'm a staff of one. So I develop the plan and I execute the plan, but it also allows me to change the plan when I need to. And believe me, we needed to because we had COVID, Hurricane Ida. I'm actually leading the long-term recovery group for Hurricane Ida in Jefferson Parish, working with Jefferson Parish government, working with other stakeholders with the United Way, with the YMCA, with Catholic Charities, with the American Red Cross. So you have to kind of be nimble, and that is probably the biggest takeaway, is that you have to be able to adjust your plan and move forward. So we had a tornado last week. That was another disaster. We had people affected by that in Jefferson Parish as well, in Gretna. So I keep hoping that things will calm down. We live in the New Orleans area. Things are never going to calm down. So, after living here as many years as I have, I just have to kind of go with that. I do have a slide that I kind of put together just for some kind of tasks and takeaways. Do I have the ability to share that? Okay, let's see. It says it's disabled.
Sorry, bear with me. I'm trying to turn it on now. I thought it was
Okay,
on.
thank you. That's all right. I'm a very visual person, so that's kind of what I put together.
Yeah.
Just some things for you to remember when you're putting your marketing plan together, and just the basics. Can they do that yet?
No, I'm trying to look for the spot, unfortunately. I know, sorry, everyone. Michael, is there a specific place that I could, I have to go to turn that on? Calling out Michael right now, but he's
Yeah.
the one who normally does it.
Will, can you hear?
Yes.
Click the green arrow where it says screen share. You see the green, click the up, and then it says it should be for panelists. It'll let you do it.
Perfect. Got it. And I just turned it on, Christine. You should be able to
Okay,
share
thank
now.
you.
Thank you,
Yes,
Michael.
I see that. Okay. Can everybody see that now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I had just put together a marketing checklist. I mean, I went with the spring cleaning theme, but this is a checklist that I use kind of on the regular with some of my volunteers. I do have wonderful volunteers. Even though I'm a staff of one, I'm also working with the Donnelly Center at Loyola University this semester. And that's been very, very helpful. And I have board members that like marketing, that like communications. So realize that too, you may have interns or volunteers that want to jump in and learn a little bit more about this. So that's a great resource for you. But I wanted to put this checklist together to kind of remind you of the things that you need to do. I know this is something that you probably think about sporadically, or maybe you're like me, that you like a checklist, that you want to go through your website content to make sure it's up to date. I often visit other websites when I'm doing some reconnaissance and research on potential donors or organizations. And I'm always really surprised to find that their websites are out of date or have content from 2020. They haven't looked at their website in 2 years. That's a little strange to me. Purging your email list, making sure that you're deleting emails that no longer exist, keeping that up to date, trying to find people, if their emails are bouncing and they're still around, trying to get that information. This is not something I would do weekly, but it might be quarterly. Examining social media efforts. A lot of times my board will say, my board is a little bit older. And when I say that, older than me, and I'm in my late 50s, they're not as connected on social media, but a lot of our younger followers are. So a lot of times they'll ask me, well, are we sharing that? How are we getting the word out? So know what your social media efforts look like, and know specifically which marketing mediums are working for you. For us, our newsletter and Instagram are the best way for us to communicate because we have the data, which is the bottom bullet point that I have, is use data to inform decisions, because that will tell you where you need to put your time and effort when you're marketing on social media. Create a marketing calendar. You may not have the ability or the time to do it for the entire year. And sometimes that doesn't work because you are, to use that word, pivoting, because you're going from one disaster to another, or you're working with clients that can't calendar the whole year out, but you could do it for the upcoming month. You could do it for the quarter. I try to do the year and then work back from there and just kind of adjust how I'm going to market specific events that we do, I might have a focus on education. I might then have a focus on our race equity group. But if you don't write it down and kind of have a calendar in place, you're just kind of working off the cuff on the daily. And I think that can be very stressful. Update your about page, because that's ever changing, and you want to update with current projects that you're working on or initiatives. You want to also monitor your online reputation. This is especially important for organizations or businesses where you have the organization and maybe you have someone that's out there, maybe the president or the CEO is involved in the community. I can think back to Rouse's and what they went through with January 6th and the insurrection. It's important to know what people are saying about you. I think, there are ways that you can kind of mitigate, and especially if you have an organization that is kind of risk averse, and some of them would be. My organization, not so much, because we are in the community helping. But occasionally I'll get DMs. We had a vaccination campaign. Vaccinations were a little controversial. And so, we were supporting the fact that, let's get back together, let's get vaccinated. And honestly, I didn't think it would be, that controversial, but it was. So I needed to kind of monitor that and report back to my board that, and actually I got death threats over the vaccinations, but you can't take things personally and you just have to move forward. But it is good to know what the public is saying or thinking or doing, so you can take a pulse. And then another item is to organize photos. So one of the things, and this is something I need to work on a little bit more, because when I do want to promote the free swim lessons that we're giving, I want to make sure my photos of the children who are learning how to swim are up to date. They're not from 2008 when we first started. So I'm constantly updating and organizing photos so I can do that impact and tell that story. but it takes time. But I have to remind myself with my checklist. And then review organization branding. I think we kind of go through as organizations, whether you're a nonprofit or a corporation or a marketing firm. We all have a brand that we need to kind of review and take a look at and see if we're the same company we were when we started. For me, coming in as the first executive director, the brand that they had in 2008 did not work in 2020. And it may not even work in 2022. So moving forward, we will tweak and try to see who we are and what our voice is for Jefferson Parish. And then your personal brand on LinkedIn. You want to make sure that you have as much information on LinkedIn. You want to share articles. You want to write blog posts. You want to be the expert in what you do. And a good way to do that is through LinkedIn and those connections. And then testing your site speed for your website is very important. I know Jack Reiner's on the call and he does a lot with that. You want to make sure that, especially if you're selling products on your website, the business that I owned 9 years ago, we were selling restaurant supplies and equipment. So I needed a site that could manage to keep up with that shopping cart and those orders. Also review keyword targeting, especially if you're new in the market. And even if you're not, you want to make sure that the words that people are going to search for you are there. And sometimes you want to, in my case, I would probably contract that out because that's not my area of expertise, but I know it's very, very important. And then also refresh your collateral pieces. If you're going to, in my case, a lot of times I'm getting together with potential donors and I want to have pieces that tell the story about where their donor dollars are going to go, or projects that we're working on for the future of Jefferson Parish. I want to have some pieces that I can leave behind. So I'm going to refresh those and make sure they're up to date. And I do that at least once a quarter, especially if I'm working with funders or other large national foundations. So that is something that I do pretty regular. Updating, right now we're doing a drive for musical instruments. So a couple of the funders that I was talking to wanted to know how many students are in the public school system in Jefferson Parish, how many students would be served. So those are all, all pieces that I need to kind of add to my collateral pieces so that they know this is the impact of where your donor dollars will go. And then I mentioned it earlier, but just to use data to inform decisions, because you'll know exactly where you need to be. Like I said earlier, for social media, Instagram has been, the biggest bang for our buck, as well as our newsletter. So I'm not going to put a lot of effort into Twitter, though we tweet. If it's not getting us connected to different people, and then community is in the middle of our name for Jefferson Community Foundation. So getting out into the community, sponsoring events, being at events, talking, to people in the community, as well as Jefferson Parish government. Even though we're not connected to them, we collaborate with them. We try to supplement the services that they're not able to provide. So it's important that I consider them one of my clients as well. I have to stay connected to them to find out what it is Jefferson Parish needs and how we can help and kind of plug in for the work that we're doing. So I probably have spoken too much, but I also will mention I am the membership chair for the AMA chapter. This has been the best investment for me in my time and the people that I've met, the connections. Malcolm and I have worked on a previous board. So I was president 2009, 2010. I took a couple of years off. I was still a member, but I got off the board. And then I proudly got back on, and it's just a great organization that I think you all should join if you're not members.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Sure. Stop sharing.
There you go.
Thank you so much. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move over to kind of the Q&A portion of it. What I'm going to do is I know we got one question in and I'll get it started, but I'm just going to turn everybody, if you have any questions, feel free to kind of like ask in your own voice. But just to kind of get us started with it, and this is for anybody on the call, is there any part of your marketing plan that should be scrapped completely in a post-COVID environment, or anything added that was previously overlooked? This can be for either internal or external communications.
Who wants it?
And it could be anyone.
Okay, wait. So
Yeah.
you asked that question just one more time, so I make
Oh,
sure.
I'm sorry. I read fast. Is there any part of your marketing plan that should be scrapped completely in a post-COVID environment, or anything, or add anything that might have been overlooked? And this is both internal or external communication.
In a post-code environment. So I would say if your communications or marketing plan doesn't have an emphasis on being digital, then you need to rethink that, because COVID really taught us that like it's got to be digital, right? Things have to be easy to share on social media, easy to click and read. The more video you can do to communicate anything is better. More photography. I don't know. I think gone are the days. I mean, when I was at the refinery level, gone are the days of like our writing a press release and just like sending that to the media and hoping that that works out on letterhead. What I was literally doing was using our internal digital app, putting that in there, building it out with images, having links in there, making it shareable, sharing to our social media, putting everything in one place, but making it easy to connect digitally. I just think we're out of the phase where things aren't going that way. And if I was at an event, be it a volunteer event or some type of public event that we were participating in, I was always making sure I got really, really good images and hopefully video, and putting some type of small package together that was like less than a minute that someone could digest. That to me, that's what I learned about COVID. I was already kind of going in that direction, but COVID, it just, that's where we all were during that time, and now is on our phones and wanting to see things digitally, and not have it looked, when I say digitally, not posting a picture of a press release on Facebook or a picture of a news story, but posting the story where someone can copy and someone can click it and read it. So I guess if that was part of your plan, if not being digital was part of your plan, it definitely needs to be rethought.
And feel free, anybody, if they have any other specific questions, feel free to kind of jump in with it. I know I had one that kind of also, go ahead.
Yeah, I would add to what Tristan said, because we've gotten the most engagement when we've had videos. So we organized a senior expo around St. Patrick's Day for the parish with over 2,000 seniors. So some of the videos that were taken and shared, really, I've heard so many people say, oh, I saw the video of the seniors line dancing at lunchtime with Jefferson Parish president. And I'm like, you did? Okay, well, that's great. So, that visual will help me next year. I'll be able to use that video to get other sponsors to come on board in 2023. So, video, it's, that's why, TikTok is so popular right now. That image, and it's short, quick, sweet.
So sorry, guys, my electricity flickered again, but are we still on the COVID question?
Yes, go ahead.
So, you know, absolutely is my response to that. The world changed. You know, as Tristan was saying, digital. It forced one of my most conservative clients to get on social. And you know, after I'd been telling them for literally 10 years they needed to get on social, because they now no longer had budget, because their budget was tied to ticket sales, which they had no ticket sales. And the only way they could remain relevant was through social. The other thing that I would remind people is we're not even in post-COVID yet. We don't know what that even looks like. We might never be post-COVID for all we know right now. And so, you know, it just goes back to the basics. Be ready to pivot, because, you know, there's another wave out there, and, you know, what happens? We just don't know. So if you're a marketer and are uncomfortable with not knowing the future, you really need to question the profession you went into, because none of us know exactly what's going to happen. We just got to be ready for it.
Danielle, you had a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask a question about the, you know, like starting like a digital news platform. Like if someone was interested in like starting a new one, what is the likelihood of like that being successful if it's just one person? And like what would you do to just start it, you know?
So I guess you mean like something for like the public? Like what do you mean a news platform? I'm trying to see if I could help answer.
Yeah, just like a news site for public. So I live in New Orleans. So for example, if there's like, you know, entrepreneurs who have businesses or great stories to tell. I'm working at Dilla right now. So we
Okay.
have a lot of good stories to tell. So if a person wanted to start something like that, what would be the first step?
That might be a Malcolm question.
I was gonna kick it to you, Tristan. I'm
I don't know. That's a good
I'm a
question.
branding guy.
I would say you just get started. I mean, the first step is to get started. You have to develop some content and then try to get the word out to the community, you know, wherever that community is. It could be being a part of this AMA community. You know, if you're a member of the AMA, we allow you to post on, you know, have blog posts. A lot of members don't know that's available to them. And then we, you know, could certainly promote it to the community. We have a lot of followers. You know, come up with who your audience would be and then start making connections to that audience, whether it's the school community at Dillard or it's the entrepreneur, you know, environment with like the Idea Village or a chamber. You know, there are a lot of different ways that you can connect in the community, but come up with a list of who are your target audiences. And then the first step is just to get started. You're not going to be an overnight sensation. I mean, a lot of you may be too young to remember the Drudge Report and, you know, how that kind of blew up. It was a gentleman, you know, sitting in his living room that started the Drudge Report. So he never imagined it would, you know, lead to the impeachment of a president. So that's what I would say about that.
You know,
Yeah.
Michael put in there in the comments too to find a niche. And I was going to say that too. It might be easier, you know, look at what's being communicated out there, and there's just something missing. Is there an audience that we're really not paying a lot of attention to? And I think that's probably the best strategy, because that'll help guide you what content you need to do, right? I was just thinking back when I launched a Facebook page for the refinery in 2020. And remember, I was telling you guys our niche was really the community that we were operating in, our operating community. And so I went out and looked ahead of time, like, what are the Facebook groups that people are in Belle Chase? You know, where are people really getting their news? Is it the parish government page, or is it these community neighborhood groups or HOAs? And that's what I did, right? When I launched it, I started sharing news in there, and it just got so many clicks, and people were paying attention because it was relevant to them. And I think that's, at the end of the day, any news that you write, that's what you want to do, is be relevant to the people reading it. You want people to go there for information. So I think Michael's right. Finding that niche is where you got to go. Just what's not being communicated. And we all know things that are happening around the city or something that you just don't hear a lot about, but they're really interesting. It just doesn't get covered. So I hate to say news with a twist, because I feel like that's not the phrase I want to use, but news that just maybe isn't getting the coverage that, that other things are.
Right. The only thing that I would add to that, specific to your question, Danielle, is that I would start by trying to look at potential partnerships. You know, who are the groups out there that are kind of have the same goals in mind that I do? And in your specific case, I will tell you that GNO Inc. has recently launched a program for entrepreneurs in HBCUs throughout the city. And so there is a group called Startup Noir. The way I know this is we're actually creating a website for them right now. But they're in the early stages and really trying to support the Black entrepreneurs in our city, so that you could be their news arm, for lack of a better term. But that's what I would look for, is partnerships. Idea Village is another good one. Propeller is one that's out there. So there are other people who want the same things as you, and you just need to find them and see how y'all could work together.
We're got about time for about one more question, if anybody's got anything burning to ask our panelists.
Thanks, everyone. That was very helpful.
Thank you. If nobody's got anything else, we can go ahead and end it there, because we're super close to the time. But once again, thank you, Christine, Tristan, Malcolm, for joining in there to kind of impacting some of your knowledge on there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Please stay safe. It is kind of frightening out there. Hopefully your power stays on. And as I said earlier, check out AMA. Give it a shot if you're interested and not a member yet, but also look at the events too. You don't have to necessarily be a member to take advantage of the events. It's financially better if you are a member, because the price goes down on a lot of them, or they're free. But other than that, thank you all so much. And all the members will have the recording of this if you want to go back and look up anything, and try to keep in some of the major points that from today, looking at the gathering that feedback, actually having conversations in addition to the numbers, looking at who your target audience is, or even your target resources as well. And lastly, just kind of keeping that adaptive and mindset, and then being able to pivot too, which is probably the most important thing for all of this, that all of our panelists talked about, is being able to pivot no matter what kind of comes up in front of you. But that being said, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Stay
guys.
safe.